Welcome to the second episode in a Legendarium series about the life and reign of King Richard III. In Part 2, Lord of the North, we will talk about Richard's career as an administrator and magnate before we talk about his invasion of Scotland. By the year 1471, the 18-year-old Richard Plantagenet had helped restore his brother Edward IV to the throne and taken the wife of a dead rebel, Anne Neville, as his bride. This union meant that Richard gained a sizable chunk of the estates once owned by Anne's father, Warwick the Kingmaker. Combined with the Duchy of Gloucester, it made Richard one of the richest magnates in England. The couple had one son, Edward of Middleham, born in the year 1473. On top of that, big brother King Edward IV rewarded Richard's loyalty by making him Lord High Admiral of England. Richard still did not expect to inherit the throne from his brother, who had two sons of his own, so he turned his attention towards building a future for the ducal dynasty he intended to found. Richard single-mindedly extended his estates, located mainly in the north. He also recruited a large retinue of armed men and added the castles of Richmond, Scarborough, and Skipton to his holdings. Yet Richard's interests extended beyond the acquisition of land. Being a modern-minded magnate, Richard took a keen interest in managing his land as well. And with cross-channel trade booming, Richard had every reason to keep market prices in mind. He also showed himself to be surprisingly pious, donating a generous endowment to Queen's College in Cambridge so the clergy there would pray for his comrades in arms who perished at Barnet and Tewkesbury, the battles which restored his brother Edward to the throne. Richard also took a keen interest in architecture and helped to design the Royal College of Arms, which housed all the heraldic devices for every noble family in England. Yet Richard did not wholly give up on that other aristocratic pastime, war. During his trips to court in Westminster, Richard urged his brother to take a firmer hand with France. In 1475, Richard helped to finance his elder brother's invasion of France, which included 11,000 English soldiers. King Edward's seasonal war ended with a treaty which gave the English expanded trade rights. Much closer to home, George of Clarence, Richard and Edward's younger brother, who had been pardoned for his role in the 1471 rebellion, lost his wife. Isabel Neville, Anne's sister, died in 1476 from consumption or childbed fever. George became convinced that someone poisoned his wife, so he did the only logical thing, arresting and executing one of his late wife's handmaidens. When George started making scenes in the royal court, King Edward IV arrested 3 of George's retainers, tortured them until they confessed to treason, and then executed them. King Edward wanted George to take the hint, but he did not. Indeed, George had another of his retainers testify falsely to save his comrades' lives. His patience at an end, Edward IV had Parliament pass a bill of attainder against his own brother, who was tried for treason. An astrologer conveniently confessed that George paid him to kill the king with black magic, and according to legend, George was drowned in a cask of Malmsey wine. Through his acquiescence to, if not outright participation in, his troublesome brother's execution, Richard added some of George's lands to his estate. And after George's execution, Richard left court to make himself, in the words of another courtier, the undisputed Lord of the North. Though his brother, King Edward, did not expect Richard to become so powerful, he likely saw him as a loyal counterweight to other northern earls. To crown his achievement, Richard planned an invasion of Scotland. He brought men and supplies to the region and used his navy to control the seas. Hundreds of mercenaries streamed into the north from Germany, Switzerland, and Burgundy. By the summer of 1482, 20,000 men ready to cross the border into Scotland. On the other side, Scotland fell into civil war. James II of Scotland warred with his nobles, and some of James' own brothers joined the rebels in hopes of becoming king. King Edward IV, enjoying the banquets and tournaments around London, let his brother lead the Scottish invasion. On July 15, 1482, Richard marched out of York and laid siege to Berwick-on-Tweed. King James planned to march against Richard, but a group of dissident nobles, led by his own uncle, kidnapped him and hung some of James' low-born companions. By August 24th, Richard took Berwick and forever made it part of England. With his army's term of service almost over, Richard went home to a hero's welcome. English nobles did not fail to notice that King Edward, growing fat from too many royal banquets, did not bring victory. On the other hand, Richard brought them Berwick. Perhaps sensing the wind blowing in Richard's direction, Parliament thanked him, made him king's lieutenant in the north, and allowed him to keep any land he conquered in Scotland. A pleased and honored Richard planned more wars against Scotland, at least until fate intervened. That wraps things up for this episode of the Legendarium. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe. And if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.